When the ice of winter holds the house in its rigid grip, when curtains are drawn early against the vast frozen waste of landscape, almost like a hibernating hedgehog, I relish the security of being withdrawn from all that summer ferment that is long since past. Then it is time for reappraisal, to spread out, limp and receptive, and let garden thoughts rise to the surface. They emerge from some deep source of stillness, which the very fact of winter has released.
That's a great description of what wintertime is for the gardener, isn't it?
Yeah, and I wrote it. I'm just kidding.
That was great.
Great gardening book, A Gentle Plea for Chaos, which the title alone speaks so near and dear to my gardening heart. Because as the very beginnings of spring begin to come out, the garden is exposed for all the wear and tear it's taken through the winter season. And here she is in all her glory or lack thereof.
Speaking of good quotes, that reminds me of a passage from The Wind in the Willows, where Mole is coming out and walking around in the transition between sort of fall and winter, and he looks and sees the copses, the dells, the quarries, and all the hidden places which had been mysterious mines for exploration in leafy summer. And now they're exposed in themselves, and their secrets are exposed pathetically, and seem to ask him to overlook their shabby poverty for a while, till they could riot in rich masquerade as before, and trick and entice him with the old deceptions.
And riot they will.
They will riot, but it is a reminder that it's a bit of a masquerade. You know, the truth of these plants really lies in their bones and in what they are when they're undressed, as it were. And it's this time of year where we get to see that truth, and we get to look at it in a way that helps us ask the question, what can we do now? And how can we plan in a way that can help them in that masquerade to riot and to explode in color and whatnot when spring comes and summer comes?
Flower gardeners know that this is the time of year where we get to sink our first seeds into the soil, even if we need to do that indoors. So I've taken a few moments to organize my seeds. I know it doesn't look like it, but this system seems to work pretty well. So I'm gathering up some of the seeds that I saved from last year's lupin and hollyhocks, and it's time to get started on this next year's new perennial garden. This is a time of year where, it's kind of like going through a buffet where you end up filling 5 or 6 plates, sure that you're going to eat it all. And then you get about halfway through and you think, what was I thinking? And yet every year I do the same thing. I overplant, I overseed start, I overorder, all in the name of beautiful riots in the garden come summertime.
So are you of the mind that it's better to overdo it and then pare back when you go to plant and put things in the ground? Or do you think it's better to not do quite as much and then fill holes as you need to? What do you think? Is there a right way there?
I think you know the answer to this question.
Well, I know how you do it.
I will always overdo it. And here's why. Because gardening is an art in many ways. It's a science, but it's also an art. And there's a lot of variables like children or storms or farm animals that escape. Any number of things could put a quick end to your gardens. And so when I'm seed starting perennials like I am right now, I'm always going to overplant because some of them are going to be weak. Some of the seeds aren't going to germinate. Maybe some of them I plant in an area that gets flooded or that gets trampled. So I would always rather err on the side of having more, especially at this time of year when I'm planting, because I got energy to spare. I am eager to get out there and get my hands in the soil. So I'm willing to take on the extra work. I seed start my perennials in these standard 72 cell plug trays that I get from Johnny's Seeds using plastic markers and permanent pens because, trust me, as much as you think you'll be able to identify them in a few weeks, you won't. So take the time, mark them, and get it right. As you get started with your perennial garden, it's important to visualize what the end goal is. Stu, I'm going to continue to cling to that word from Wind in the Willows, the riot, because a July garden is a riot. And finding things that inspire you, finding books, finding photographs, even if it's of your own garden, use them to remember that riot. So as you're picking colors and shapes and flowers, it can all fit into that grand picture of what you have in mind, of what you want of your garden. Because the snow has melted and things are no longer able to hide and they have been exposed, we have realized the need to finally create a beautiful garden and riot in the backyard of the house. This is a portion of the house that you've probably never even seen because it's ugly and it's time to get to it. What do you think, Stu?
Right. It's that place that we've always wanted to do something with, but we're never quite sure. And I think it's really taken this much time and experience to kind of wrap our heads around what we might want to do here.
Yes.
I think we're finally ready to tackle it. We have a good idea and we're putting plans into place. So right now we're just trying to really be in that space so that we know how to plan well and what might work best there. It's a place that is on the shady side of the house. It's also a place that kids play. And so whatever we do there needs to accommodate some of those things.
So when I'm setting out to create a new space like this, and maybe you've found yourself in the same situation, I always go to my old gardening books. And these are books that have been collected from all kinds of old bookstores over the years. A lot of them aren't even published anymore. And I've read them 1,000 times. And yet every time I go back to them, I find something new. I find a new path or a new texture or a new shape or new, color combinations, something that strikes me, something that will speak to the space that I'm creating. I'm really excited to see this space developed, and it's going to start with a pathway coming off the greenhouse gardens, which you can see to the top left there. So a pathway will carry through the garden, and that will be flanked by 2 traditional English borders, which I have always wanted to make. These will be about 6 feet deep and have all different kinds of perennials and annuals in them. And then from there, the pergola.
So the pergola area first will put down a patio. I think will serve as a place for chairs, and it stays cool and shady, especially during the summer. And so that will be a nice area to maybe have a place just to hang out.
The pergola is going to be wonderful because it's going to overlook a new, bigger pond that we're going to put over this giant weed pile that's currently sitting in the corner. This is going to have water flowers and fish and, kind of a little rocky, sandy front area where the kids can wade in and cool their feet off in the summertime and really give us a place to sort of sit around and enjoy and look at the pond, because people are drawn to water like people are drawn to fire. So the idea is sort of to create this space where people want to be and they'll have something beautiful to look at.
Yeah, and while we're doing this, we're defining areas. So we need to separate sort of this backyard area from the orchard. And a good way to do that is with a good fence line a picket fence seems classic. So I
It
think we'll do
does.
something along those lines.
Maybe planting with some like pink hollyhocks around it.
Right. Yeah. You want to break up
Ooh.
the hard line of the fence with something organic.
That
And so
could
we'll
be
definitely put something
charming.
there. Yeah.
That'll be great. And then, probably the part I'm most excited about, even over the pond, is just to have this big shade garden alongside the house, because this has been such a gross area for the 4 years that we've lived here. And I'm picturing logs and mushrooms and ferns and hostas and all kinds of beautiful shade-loving plants that we haven't really been able to grow a lot of because we just don't have shade here and we have very hot summers. So this is going to be that rocky, mossy forest floor sort of garden that, Stu, I know you've always wanted.
Oh, definitely. When I think of the places that I would just love to be, it's always something like that.
Do you know why?
Because I'm a nerd.
Because you're a hobbit. It's like a hobbit garden, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So this, hopefully, as it comes together this year, will be a culmination of a lot of the things we've learned and a lot of the things that we've learned that we love. And hopefully we can put all of this into this area.
And if you're developing gardens of your own this summer, know you're not alone. You are in good company. Let's focus on creating this beautiful riot together.